about e-commerce budgets, really how to develop budgets for developing a digital business. And whoever is with the camera, I guess you've already got that on. Okay, thank you. So we'll be talking about budgets for digital business, and it's really important that we get a better understanding as to not just what things cost, but also knowing how many things do we need to associate cost to when it comes to development or redesign of e-commerce websites online. Yeah? Okay, so first and foremost, before we do anything when it comes to identifying what needs to be redesigned or redeveloped for the first time or created, we need to be able to get a really good understanding as to what is that we're trying to do. And the development journey you see in front of you now is really something that can help you pick up some of the areas that needs development, but also identify every single task and every single process that needs developing, because all of that will be associated with time, and time normally is associated with money. So, and then depending whether you do the work internally, in-house, inside a company, or externally, that can have a major impact on the actual budget for an e-commerce website. So, first and foremost, you need to do a very simple thing, but can take very long time to get everyone to agree, is to what is that you're trying to do with an e-commerce website and why you're doing it. Whether it is a redesign of some of its features like navigation, support, or product views on product catalogs or anything like that, you need to identify very clearly what is that you're trying to do. And you've got to have everyone on board that agrees with it. Second, you will then make sure and follow up, have a clear understanding as to why you need to do that. So, the second question really should come from your research, from your analytics. Maybe in general can come from the idea that somehow the numbers are not adding up when it comes to conversion rate, or maybe you're having a really huge number of traffic and users on your website, but really, when it comes to business, nothing is converting. So maybe you picked up areas where you're falling short, and then you need to have a process in place that redesigns those areas, right? And then the redesign and redevelopment, that can cost, of course, but then making sure that you know exactly how much it'll cost is very important, because whether you are running your own business or working for someone else, you've got to have some sort of approval that the work that needs to be done can go ahead, right? So once you've done that, once you've laid out a clear justification as to why you need this done, okay, you need to start developing a plan, right? A specification plan. Now, the specification plan will really lay out the entire process on the feature that needs maybe redesign or redevelopment, and of course also clear ideas as to what are the timelines that these features need to be designed by, and when these features can be tested and when they go live to the marketplace, right? And then once you've done that, the next thing which is really important is of course to put people together and then start either designing or redesigning what you've developed so far, and then the next stage will be the development, the building, okay? And of course, in general here you've got two different teams. You've got the design team that design the front end, the CSS style sheets, and then you've got the programming team behind the scene that does the coding, right? Those long list of codes that make no sense to you if you're not a developer, right? Now, in there, you can, as I said to you earlier, decide to have all this done inside a company, what we call in-house, or get it done somewhere else, outside. And of course, that will have sort of like different impacts when it comes to the overall business, whether you want to do it inside or not. And that's why we'll talk about it later on when it comes to outsourcing opportunity. Once you've designed the actual features through wireframes, and wireframes are very much the blueprints of what needs doing, what needs redesigning, that you're going to get your team to do it, right? And you as a manager will be doing this. Until the work is approved by a line manager or by a director or by a partner, you will then have this process put in place and agreed on, and then it will be your role to do this all before anyone does anything. So you as a team leader or as a manager will do all of this before any designer, any developer starts doing anything, right? So it can be quite challenging, it's quite hard work, because there are a mix of things. There's a mix of research, data analytics, and also making sure that you get a clear idea as to where you want to get with this whole thing. And then after that, once you've designed and built that up, the next thing is going to be what? To test. Now, part of the development plan is to set up clear milestones when the test should start and when the test should end, right? Before the actual website goes live into the marketplace. And trust me, nowadays more than ever, companies are investing more than ever before into testing out every single feature that is developed in the website before it goes live. Because even after you test it, there are still things that go wrong. In fact, there's always things that go wrong, no matter how much you do, how much you work. But the good thing now with testing is that we've got lots of automated testing, right? So there's software who tests things for us. We don't actually have to do lots of manual testing, but manual testing is still there, but there's quite a bit of work that is done by software nowadays. Once we've got everything right, the next thing is going to happen is launch into the marketplace. But that doesn't mean that the project and everything is finished. It just means that that overall objective of launching this whole website into the marketplace is done. But that doesn't mean that there is an end to it, because you'll have to keep reiterating, changing things based on the feedback that you're getting from your customers. So, there's lots of bullet points or tick boxes in there that you'll see, but you need to think about all these tasks, right, as a part of your development plan before you get started with it, right? So you need to make sure that you've got a very, very clear idea as to what is required. And I'm going to highlight some of them that come into e-commerce projects most of the time. Well, first and foremost, you need to describe what is the task that needs doing, and of course, who is going to be responsible for it, and what are specific notes that needs doing against each task, right? And of course, first and foremost, if you're going to build a new business model, you need to have a fantastic, unique idea when it comes to e-commerce. You need to list products that you want to sell and research them very well, because that will reflect on the navigation, on overall functionality of the website. Make it very clear that you know who's the target audience of yours. Create a detailed business plan, of course, in writing. Brainstorm a name for your business, right? Making sure that you know very clearly how you want to be recognized in the marketplace. Have updated computer, internet, software, and other equipment that you will need. And that could be anything from hosting to third-party platforms like Shopify, Magento, and so on. Establish infrastructure for your business, including bookkeeping, warehouse, and all of that. And develop realistic budget to launch and keep the business going. So business plan helps. And that's why this is always the case, in particular, for setting up new businesses. In this case, when it comes to e-commerce. So, let's go back to the actual project plan. And what are other bits that you need to be thinking about? Well, first and foremost, you need to keep in mind that there are several parts within the first task when it comes to a redesign of your e-commerce website. Creative, technical, integration, budgeting, testing, and promotion. Now, you have to keep all of those in mind and then break them down individually and make sure that they are part of the plan and responsibility set for everyone to be doing. you need to set up an agreement on project goals and constraints. Now, when it comes to the e-commerce, you might be working for an agency yourself that develops e-commerce websites, or you might be doing your own e-commerce website. Whichever way you go, you still need to have some sort of agreement and some sort of ideas as to what are the constraints in the project, because again, that'll take time. Assembling and briefing the project team. So, as a project leader, as a project manager, it'll be your responsibility to get things off the ground. Right? And of course, that's why, in general, when you get to meet e-commerce managers, right, some of them can be quite technical. Because they actually went ahead and learned a bit of code, because they really want to have hands-on things and have a clear idea as to what things need to be done in the project. Brainstorming creative ideas. Again, you might think this is brilliant. It's actually a very enjoyable time to be part of that session. But the problem is that there is time associated with it, right? So you need to make sure that you've got time set for this part of the project, which is the brainstorming session for creative ideas. Competitor analysis and market analysis as well. They are both time-consuming things. So you're never going to just decide to change your e-commerce website, redesign that because you had a brilliant idea while you had a shower. Okay? That's all fine, but you've got to have some justification for it, because your business partner or your manager or your director, he will like to see why is there, is there an evidence why we need to do this, right? So you need to be able to justify that. You need to be able to do some research. And again, those creative ideas need to be backed up by research. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to get people to support you. The next one is analyzing of business logic from selling and fulfillment and also return. So how are you going to handle this, right? So how is it going to work out? What are the things that you need to have in the front end of the website to be able to manage these things very well? Project planning phase 2. You need to start to get down into product modeling and database design. So when it comes to database design, in general, you will actually use off-the-shelf databases. You're not going to build up a new one, even if you're a large company, because there's so many good solutions. You wouldn't do that. It wouldn't be worthwhile reinventing the wheel. Product modeling, you would actually need to get lots of information about products. So take a really good photographs, maybe capture some of those features of products into video, right? And then making sure that you've got fantastic quality photographs in there and also video, and also making sure that you've got probably an opportunity to add feature for reviewing products as well. And again, that will take time and it needs to be part of project spec. Promotion and design and logic, we talked about this earlier. How does the design link with everything else that we're trying to serve? Now again, the design needs to fulfill the needs of the customers, right? So the design should be there because it's going to make people's life easier. It's going to make all that navigation process within the website easier, and therefore it needs to respond to the needs that customers have. And we talked about this in the customer journey. Design of the decision support tools for shoppers, including the experience that they need to choose. So how are you going to make it really easy for them to order, right? Are you going to have a drop-down menu? Are you going to have a supporting menu? Are you going to have a filters in these products so then they can pick up the product they want to buy? Writing of all text and pages. Again, there's quite a bit of work in there to sit down to either rewrite or write from scratch all the content they need for the pages. If you're going to do this for a client, it's quite clever to try and get the client to do as much work as possible. Okay? Because getting people to write that content for you is going to cost time, right? And that time is going to raise the overall cost of the project, and that can actually kill the revenue that you might get if you are redesigning the project for your client. But even if you're going to do this for yourself, try to get people, maybe across other departments, to do a bit of writing for you so you can have that ready. Because it's all about terms and conditions and privacy, so you really have got to have good, in most cases, good solicitors who actually, approve that the content in there is the right one for the company at hand. Because again, T's and C's are going to support you. Have you noticed when you have a problem with a company, and they'll say, oh, by the way, our T's and C's say this, and therefore you're not covered. Right? So ultimately, the T's and C's are almost like a magic card that a business brings onto you when they need to protect themselves. Right? And say, oh yeah, wait a second, you're complaining about this, but the T's and C's say that, boom, in your face. Forget about the complaint or forget about your issue, because we won't be dealing with it because our T's and C's do not say that they do. Right? The problem is, of course, that in general users do not read T's and C's, right? We live in a dynamic world where we just sign up for things and we forget to read them. In fact, sometimes if you read T's and C's, you probably would have signed up in the first place. Right? But again, the reality is that you just tick the boxes, agree with everything, and then when they let you down, you say, oh God, they need to help me, and then they remind you that they are not covered by their terms and conditions. But again, for the business, it is how you protect yourself. So it needs to be very well written, it needs to make sense. Design and implementation of CRM, customer relationship management system. So again, this in general will be probably off-the-shelf platform. You're not going to redesign this yourself. But again, even if you're going to take off-the-shelf, you'll have to integrate with the rest. So that'll take time. Design of customer service processes and systems. So how are you going to provide customer support? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to have a number where people can call? Can people send you emails and forms? Are you going to provide and offer social media support as well? And so on. Next one, analysis of business logic, selling, fulfillment, and returns. We talked quickly about this earlier, but you need to have a clear idea as to what's going to happen after you sold something to someone. That is not the end of the story. In fact, in general, that's probably the beginning of the story. Because you're going to have all sorts of issues. You're going to have customers who are just not happy with the product. You're going to have customers who receive damaged product, and you have to deal with it. You're going to have customers who just receive the product and they do not like it, simple as that. Or what they ordered looks slightly different to what they received. Or it just doesn't fit them. So how are you going to deal with that? So you've got to have processes in place to be able to have that sort of customer support channel in place. Agreement of functionality, specification, and plan within the budget. Again, you will need to make sure that you will have very clear agreed ideas within your team. Okay? Because sometimes you can go overboard with ideas and creative ideas and so on. That can be sometimes even impossible to implement, or sometimes they're just very, very costly. And I remember back in 2003 or 2004, when we were dealing with one of the first clients in London to do their web development, and I was so excited because we were just starting with a company. I was so excited to meet the client with my co-founder at that time, who was more technical. I was more like a business guy, and I was so excited to meet with the guy that I went all over the place with the new ideas of how we can make their website amazing, right? And then I could see my co-founder next to me just look at me and saying, "What are you doing? This is going to kill all the profits. I can't probably do most of these things anyway." But I was going all over the place just so I could make the client so happy. And she was very happy, right? And she was going to be like, "Oh God, we're getting all of this with this budget? I mean, this is amazing, right?" And so, but that sort of like stuck with me for a long time, that you need to set yourself some boundaries as to how much you're going to stretch yourself. Whether doing it inside your company or doing it for a client. Because you can definitely go over the board. And I remember we didn't end up making lots of money from that first client. Simply because we had so many features that I was coming up with almost every week. to integrate it to their website, and their website ended up being fantastic, but we didn't end up making lots of money, because I just kept coming with the new ideas, as I always do. But again, setting up some limitations is important. So you need to agree with everyone in the team as to where you're going with it. Have a selection of platforms and tools for hosting environment. Now, that luckily is full of fantastic services out there, but again, there is cost associated to it. First, implementation and integration of these third-party services within your existing ones, but ultimately also paying for the memberships or for the monthly costs. So whether it's hosting or third-party services like Shopify or Magento and so on, you're going to have to pay for those even after you implement it. So there is a cost associated to it, which you will have to have it in your work. Graphical design with branding guidelines, right? And again, you might think this is all easy, all straightforward. Well, if it's for a startup and for a small business, it's not very difficult. But if you're doing a project for Virgin brand, just the idea of how the logo can be displayed and where, and what is the quality and the size and technicalities of the logo, only that brief is around 15 to 20 pages that you've got to read. And I remember when we did some work with a Virgin brand, I think it was Virgin Vouchers back in the days, sometime in 2006. Before we started with the work, that was the brief we had to read. The logo had to be displayed this way, the actual content and the font and the shading and the colors and everything had to be spot on to the brief provided, otherwise it was never going to get approved. So that thing alone took us a lot of time, because you had to make sure that the entire brief was considered when we designed the store, right? And again, that's why you see, of course, the value in the brands that have been built up over the years is kept that way and very, very strict, okay? So again, as I said, for a startup, it's not very difficult, but for well-established and large companies, you have very strict guidelines that you have to follow, and that's going to take time, right? And of course, you need to make sure that that time is associated with the project. Conversion of designs into templates and style sheets. So you'll have an initial design, but then you'll have to make sure that you identify exactly how many design pages you've got, how many style sheets need to be designed by your programming team, and of course also the design team as well. Design, testing and regime. Of course, you need to make sure that there is a set milestones in the project for the testing. And as I said, more and more, almost every single project will have a test milestone in there. We call it pre-flight test. And again, just to make sure that before anything is launched live, they are tested throughout. Implementation of shopping software, CMS, which I said to you earlier. Again, it can be quite difficult depending on the platform you're using. Whether you're using Shopify or Magento, it is not as straightforward as you think. But in general, if you are starting with Shopify alone, it'll be a lot easier. But if you're starting it with your own application and then integrating Shopify, it can be a lot more complex. Integration of stock ordering system. If you end up using third-party shopping sort of software, you don't have to worry about it because it's going to be integrated in there. However, you need to have a clear idea as to how you're going to check how much stock you've got. And again, if you're going to be using third-party fulfillment systems, like the ones from eBay or Amazon fulfillment centers, then that is done automatically, because Amazon will be talking to your own e-commerce website. In fact, Amazon servers will be talking to your own website, and they will be sending data back and forth, where they'll let the e-commerce site know availability of the products in stock. So in other words, you will not end up selling products you don't have. Sometimes companies do that. And you probably, some of you might have had situations where you order a product and it's just taken them forever to deliver to you. And then before you realize, they sold you something they don't have, and you either have to wait until you get it, or you will get a refund for it. Again, the other bit is of course integration of payment partner. You've got to integrate that with the bank because you're not going to give products for free. You've got to make sure you get paid before you send them out. Quality of photographs and videos and the content to provide the very best description, the very best ideas to what this product is. Okay? You don't get a second chance, right? Because before you realize, after 10 seconds, the customer went somewhere else. Either because the website didn't load very fast, or it was very clumsy, or they couldn't get around the product page, they couldn't get an idea as to what the product is, how much it'll cost for shipping, and so on and so forth. They couldn't get a clear idea as to what is the look, the very best look of the product, in terms of the quality, in terms of the colors, and the make, and everything else. So this is when you'll have to put all your team's effort to try and present the product the best way you can. And now you can start to see large e-commerce companies doing all sorts of things, from catwalks in fashion, to reviews on YouTube channels, to support using social media, and of course customer reviews of product using social media. So many other things until you can get a very clear idea as to what you're about to buy. And nowadays even the customer reviews are being verified, so then you don't get fake customer reviews of someone who say they bought the product but in reality they didn't, so they're just saying bad things about you. And Amazon and other big players do quite a lot to do that. Collection and manipulation of content, again, that's going to take time even after you've written the content to put it together. Make sure you identify which content goes which website, and so on. That can take time. Making sure you let the world know that you exist. Again, you've got to do a bit of advertising. So pay-per-click will have to be part of some planning, right? And again, depending on the budget you want to set yourself up for it, you need to make sure you've got project planning ready. Implementation of pay-per-click campaign, that's going to take time. It's not going to be as straightforward. You'll have to have people on board who design those Google ads, and then who test them out, who experiment with them, and then they go live for real to everyone else. Monitor search engine optimization, SEO, again, it's not done on its own. You've got to have people in place that have got specific sets of hours to redesign, but also relook into keywords, links, and hashtags, and everything else that is used across different sort of pages on the website to respond to the need in the marketplace, and in this case, in search engines. And of course social media. Support and management of problems and issues. How would you deal with that? What would be your process put in place? Again, one way of avoiding that is by having clear milestones and sign-offs on every stage of the project. Which means that once you've had people agreed on wireframes and what needs to go on those first pages of the website, including the functionality, there's no way back. That's been decided, we have to move to the next thing. If you do not do that, if you do not make sure you've got a sign up for every stage of the project, either your client or your own partner will get you to stage A, stage 1, anytime they want. And that's going to have an impact on the finish line and the launch of the product, and again, it's going to have a huge impact on the cost. So once you've agreed on something, boom, move on to the next thing. Again, that can be part of your research as well. So when you work in the groups, right, make sure you've got sign-offs and milestones throughout. So then once it's agreed as to what is your research topic, there's no way back. They've got to move on from that to the next thing. Once they have collected the content and they decided how to record the video, that's done. There's no way back. We've already been through that. Once the content is in and you decide how you want to present it, and you have the brainstorming session, it's all done, boom, that's finished as well. There's no way back. Otherwise, if you keep changing things, the end date for the submission is never going to be met. So you will be submitting an unfinished piece of work. So again, you can implement that almost in every project possible. Ways of making it cheaper when it comes to the development. Of course, we talked about these platforms from the beginning of the module. Shopify and Magento. Some of you have played around with them. It's worthwhile doing it because they are quite interesting. I mean, they are very much leading into the marketplace, including other Shopify, other sort of shopping systems as well. Again, as I said to you earlier, if you're going to do this for the client, get them to do as much as possible. If you're going to do that with your team, again, get them to do as much writing as possible. Accept a share of revenue if you're going to do with a client. There are so many cases where you can find someone who's got some brilliant products to sell, but they just do not have the knowledge to set up an e-commerce site. You can just say, well, actually, I've got a pretty good, decent understanding of Shopify. Why don't you, join forces? I will set up everything for you. You'll give me the chance to sell your products, and we'll share the profit. Okay? And as you travel around, you'll end up seeing and meeting people who run fantastic types of services or products, or sell very unique things in the marketplace, in the physical stores. But they have never thought, or probably it'll take them quite a bit of time until they think about how they're going to sell them online. And you can come in. That could be your next venture. That can be your next business. And again, it's worthwhile experimenting with it. We've done it a few times. The Market Quarter and some other websites, we've done that with some clients where we said, okay, well, if you don't have money or not have big budgets, why don't we go in, we invest our time, and then, we share the revenue. And if you're doing pretty well, actually that could become a quite successful dropshipping business because you don't own personally anything. You're just developing the e-commerce website, and as soon as someone orders from you, you're asking your partner, your business partner, to ship it directly to them. Adapting templates from other sites, again, it will take a bit of time. Use local solutions as Sticktail, Shopify, and Magento. Do additional work as revenue starts to flow. So again, as I said to you earlier, the end product that will be launched is not going to be the end of the story. It's probably just the beginning. So you need to make sure they're constantly reiterating, constantly changing. And then, there's two things that I said to you in the beginning. You can decide to do this in-house. You can hire an agency to do it for you. It can be very expensive, depending who you want to talk to. Or you can outsource it altogether somewhere else. And we start to look into some of those ideas when it comes to outsourcing. These are some of the biggest players when it comes to outsourcing. I think Upwork now has both Odesk and Elance. So it's one of those largest outsourcing website for client providers and designers and developers. And the way how it works is that you design the brief, you write up the brief of what needs doing, you put it up, the brief on the platform, and then all those developers and designers around the world will pitch you for work, and they will give you a breakdown of cost for the work to be done, and you decide which supplier you decide to go with, which agency or team you decide to go with. It's quite interesting. If you've never done anything, try it out. Even something very, very small, try it out. Pretty good amount of work gets done abroad. Simply because these platforms allow you to have access to millions of very creative designers and experienced developers around the world for very little money. Because something you would pay a developer in London is going to be very different to something you pay a developer in Romania, in India, in China, right? So, but let's look at some of the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to outsourcing. Like with every other business, you've got issues at both hands. I mean, you'll save some money if you outsource it somewhere else, but you haven't got a lot of control over those people because they live somewhere else, and there's no way you're going to jump on the plane and try to go and find them. It's just not going to happen, right? So if those guys are reliable and they tend to do the work on time, then you're lucky. But they might just take on too much work, which happens a lot, and I've used some of these services. And again, it's not that they're not good enough, they just do not have time, and there are 2 or 3 people working on like 10, 15 projects that they accepted, but they're not really ready to deliver all of them, right? So there will be a delay on almost every project. So the idea that you can't really control them because of a bit of an issue, you can't really go and visit them because it's going to be very, very expensive. And in addition to that, it becomes really hard to sort of like sometimes have a really clear communication with them, even though now these platforms provide quite a lot to smooth that out. But the good thing is that you've got reassurance for some of these large platforms, like Outwork and Pay People Per Hour and so on, which guarantee you that if the work doesn't get done, you know, you'll get a refund for it. So the middleman sort of reassures you that whatever happens between you two guys, they'll be there to protect you, which is why people tend to use it. In general, you end up, whenever you're hiring someone, depending on the model of payment, you get them to probably, I think, pay them 40% to start with the project, 40 somewhere in the middle, and 20 in the end when the project is done. So the breakdown, of course, varies depending on the service you're using. Now, they don't really do lots of testing, so testing is something you need to do yourself. When it comes to launch, they are there, but they're not really there, so I'm not going to give you as much support as you want. When it comes to updates and changing things around, again, you'll have to redesign the brief again, put it up there and decide whether you want to use those people or someone else, but it's not straightforward. As I said, time reliability becomes a bit of an issue because you can't really rely on those people too much, simply because they are far away and they take on too much work, especially those that are very good, they take on too much work and struggle to deliver on time. The other thing is the speed of response. Sometimes they're not very speedy in responding, but again, you've got to have to make somewhere sort of like a fine line of an agreement with those guys. But of course, there's always advantages and disadvantages. But again, you can experiment and prototype with something very quick using some of these services, right? Because if you wanted to redesign and redevelop a complete website, it can take, well, lots, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds in London, but you can get it done for 5, 10K somewhere outside. And maybe the quality of the work is not going to be the one you probably get in London, but it's going to be quite good. So you can actually develop something, whether it's a website or an application, you can actually experiment with it and get it done somewhere else, or get it bits and pieces done in different places, so then you can put the product together and then offer it into the marketplace. Now, just a breakdown of the cost as to how much people cost in general. Well, this is more around London, but you'll get an idea as to how much some of those people will cost to the project. From a project manager, which starts really with 30 to 40K, but then it goes up depending on experience. Sales guys in general are quite expensive, but of course the most expensive guy you can see in there is the guy that really leads the whole thing, is the creative director, and that can go anything above £60,000 a year. But of course that's the guy that has got maybe around 10-15 years of experience in delivering e-commerce websites. System admin as well. Now the Twitter manager and social media roles that are coming everywhere, simply because it's becoming part of the process of running a business. These are some of the largest London agencies, so if you wanted to sort of like have a word with them and ask them about things in terms of costing and so on, and then maybe comparing and contrasting them with the actual outsourcing platform that I talked to you about earlier, it's probably a good idea. It's interesting to see what's that cost. But again, these companies will end up charging you for an e-commerce website, some of them based on hours, some of them based on weeks, months, or projects. But in general, most of them will charge you based on hours, and they can be quite expensive. So what are some of the things to take away when this comes to e-commerce in general, but also budgets? E-commerce is a lot easier and harder than it looks. Reputation is everything. If you've got a good reputation, you will have chances to do well with your conversion rate. Web services connect systems and partners. So again, the front end is the e-commerce, but then you've got all bits and pieces that are connected together. Landing page from starting point of visitor's journey, we talked about customer journey. Just don't forget, Google makes most of its money from pay-per-click, so you need to keep that in mind. Social media could drive, and in a way, started to drive e-commerce and its future. Very good thing about what we're doing here and also in the future is to actually learn to prototype things. So a mix of Shopify software platforms like Magento and Ticktail and so on, and also the platforms like outsourcing platforms, Upwork and other ones, big people around and so on, and the use of them can give you a chance to try it out and experiment for yourself. Nowadays, you do not need to be a very sophisticated developer to start up a business. And I think for me, that's pretty amazing. Because until now, you had people arguing and also complaining that they have all these brilliant ideas, but they just do not have the skill they need to put something together. Nowadays, you can do that. Okay, as long as you've got a brilliant idea, and then you know how to execute the idea, then it becomes a lot easier. One just quick example, but of course that's on the top when it comes to e-commerce, is the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma. He's got no idea what the e-commerce sort of does in terms of specifications, infrastructure, and everything else. He can't actually build a single code, and he's never done any of it. But you know, he's built up the most successful e-commerce marketplace now in the world. And actually, I think the turnover is as Amazon and eBay put together. That's how big the company is. Of course, you need to be able to create an outline budget, and hopefully some of the things that we discussed will help you do that. You need to develop skills that are strong enough to be able to identify good and bad features when it comes to e-commerce sites. And ultimately, you need, hopefully, to be able to prepare and make recommendations based on the knowledge and the research you have done so far. And that's all. Thank you very much.